Hello friends, in this section we will discuss nested for loops and learn how to solve series and pattern programs. A nested loop is essentially a loop within a loop. If I write a for loop inside another for loop like this, then it forms a nested loop. Let's try to understand nested loops through an example. Assume that you are running a pastry shop and you got an order for 50 pastries which you must pack in 10 boxes containing 5 pastries each. I will repeat it once more. Your task is to pack 50 pastries in 10 boxes by putting 5 pastries in each box. Let's see what are the steps for packing a single box of 5 pastries. In the first step, I will open the box. Then I will place one pastry inside the box. I will repeat this step of placing a pastry in the box till I have placed 5 pastries inside the box. After that, I will seal the box, and with that, the box is ready. These are the steps for packing one box. If I repeat these steps 9 more times, then all the 10 boxes are prepared. Notice that the repetition of steps is nested here. We need to repeat these steps 10 times to pack 10 boxes. And to pack each box, we are repeating the steps of placing the pastry inside the box 5 times. In situations like these, where nested repetition occur, we make use of nested loops. Let's translate these steps into a Java program. I have already added this kboard pastry packing class and added a main method to it. Now let's complete this main method to simulate our pastry packing steps. I need to pack 10 boxes, so I will run an outer loop from 1 to 10. Inside the loop, I will perform the steps to pack one box. First, I will write a print statement to tell me which box my program is packing. Next, I need to place 5 pastries in this box, so I will start an inner loop which will run for 5 iterations like this. After that, I will simulate placing a pastry in the box through this print statement. This loop will place 5 pastries in the box. Then, outside the inner loop, I will seal the box. Now my box is ready. This is how we use nested loops. Let's execute this program now. So, our program properly prepares our 10 boxes containing 5 pastries each using nested for loops. I hope this gives you a good understanding of nested for loops. This program contains nested for loops. When one loop is contained inside another loop, we call it nested loops. Here we have an outer for loop which runs from 1 to 5, that is 5 times. Inside the outer for loop, we have an inner for loop which runs from capital A to capital Z, that is 26 times. Within the inner for loop, we print ch. And now we come to the interesting part. When ch becomes d, we execute a break statement. Now that we have gone through this program and we know how break statements work, I have a question for you. What will be the output of this program? I will give you two options. Will it be A or will it be B? Take some time, pause the video, think about all the things we have learned so far about loops and break statement and try to answer this question. Feel free to pause the video for some time now. Okay, coming back. Which answer did you choose? A or B? Let's try to find out the answer by executing this program. So, if you choose A, well done. That is the correct answer. If you didn't, no worries. We will learn about it now. Break statement doesn't have any special behavior in case of nested loops. As we saw before, break statement will transfer program control outside the code block of its enclosing statement. Here, the enclosing statement is this inner for loop. So, break statement will transfer the program control here to this println statement following the inner for loop. Program control is still inside this outer for loop. So this outer for loop will keep iterating normally without any early termination, and that is the reason for this output. Let's do a dry run and relate the code with the output. In the first iteration of this for loop, this println statement prints iteration 1 to the console. Program control comes to this inner for loop. Condition is true, so first iteration of inner for starts. A gets printed to the console as ch has the value of A. This condition is false. Program control goes back to the beginning of inner for. Ch is changed to B. It gets printed on the screen. Condition is still false. Similarly, in the next iteration, C gets printed. In the fourth iteration, Ch becomes D. It gets printed to the console. Now this condition becomes true and break statement is executed. Program control jumps to this statement outside the inner for loop. Note that only the inner for loop is bypassed. Program control is still inside the outer for loop. Program control goes back to the beginning of the outer for loop. Iteration 2 is printed to the console. This inner for loop iterates for 4 times like before, printing this A to D. Then the break statement terminates it. Similarly, the outer for loop performs 3 more iterations, producing this part of the output. Finally, this line is executed and the program completes. So that's how break statement works inside a nested for loop. Easy and straightforward, isn't it? We saw in the previous lesson that loops can be nested. Break statement exits out of only a single loop which encloses it. What if we wanted to exit out of a deeply nested set of loops when some condition is met? One way to do that, of course, is to use multiple break statements. Let me show you what I mean through an example BlueJ program. In this program, there are 3 loops nested within each other. We want to break out of all the 3 loops when the value of loop control variable k of this inner loop becomes equal to 10. So inside the inner loop, we have this condition. Notice that before breaking out of the loop, we are setting this boolean variable should break to true. We check should break variable in the middle and outer loops to know if break was executed in the inner loop. This break statement will transfer the program control outside the innermost loop to here. Program control is now in the middle loop. This condition is true as we have set should break to true before breaking out of the inner loop. So this break statement is executed. Program control exits out of middle loop and comes here. Now program control is in the outermost loop. Again, this condition is true. This break is executed, transferring the program control outside the outermost for loop to this println statement. And with this, we have finally exited all the loops. Let's execute the program now and get the output. The output comes to our expectation. The innermost for loop is executed 10 times, printing 1 to 10. As 1 to 10 is printed only once, it means that the middle and outer for loops were executed only once. As soon as k became 10, all the loops were exited and outside nested loops got printed. As you see, we have exited out of a deeply nested set of loops using multiple break statements. But this program is very difficult to maintain. So, what do I mean by this program is very difficult to maintain? Assume I have written this program and you are going through it to understand it. You need to carefully read each of these break statements and then map where they will transfer the program control when executed. This use of multiple break statements makes the program less readable and difficult to understand quickly. Now, if I ask you to add a fourth loop between the innermost and middle loop, you need to remember that you have to add a break statement when should break variable is true. Otherwise, the program will give incorrect output. So, making changes to this program is also very difficult. Because of these reasons, this program is difficult to maintain. If we can break out of a nested set of loops with a single break statement, then all these problems will be fixed and our program will become maintainable. Fortunately, break statement provides a way to do this. We can provide a label to the break statement. This label tells the break statement precisely where to transfer the program control. The journal syntax of this type of break statement is this: the keyword break, followed by the label, followed by semicolon. We call this form of break statement the labeled break statement. To understand labeled break statement, we first need to understand about this label. In Java, you can assign a name to a code block using a label, and then you can use this name to refer to that particular code block in your program. Let's go back to BlueJ and see it in practice. That will make it clear. This is the same multi-break example that we saw earlier. Here we have these three code blocks. Let's name each one of them using labels. To name a code block, assign it a label followed by a semicolon like this. I have named the outermost code block as first. Program is compiling with no errors. This name of the label can be any valid Java identifier. Similarly, I will assign a label to the middle and inner code blocks too. Now we are all set to use the labeled break statement. Let's first get rid of the break statements in the middle and outer loops. I don't need this should break boolean variable, so let's remove this too. When k becomes equal to 10, I want to exit out of all these three loops, which means that I want to exit out of this code block which we named first. So here I'll write first as the target label of this break statement. Now this labeled break statement will transfer the program control here outside the code block named first. Now with a single break statement we can exit out of these three nested loops. Let me execute the program. As you can see, the output is same as before. If I change this first to second, it will transfer the program control outside the second for loop over here. Let me add a println statement to make it clearer to you. I will execute the program now. As we are only exiting out of the middle loop, the outer loop executes for 5 times, printing 1 to 10 5 times to the console. I hope now you have a good idea about how labeled break statement works. There is one important thing that you need to remember about labeled break statement. The code block that is the target of labeled break statement must enclose the labeled break statement. Here, third, second and first code blocks enclose this labeled break statement. So any of these are a valid target label for this break. I will write another loop outside these nested loops. I have named the code block of this for loop as kboard, short form for knowledge board. So far, the code is compiling without errors. Now, I will give this code block kboard as the target of the break statement. I get a compilation error undefined label kboard. As the kboard code block is not enclosing the break statement, so it is not a valid target. Let me revert this label back to first. Now the code is compiling successfully again with no errors. So that completes our discussion of the break statement. Next we will look at the continue statement. Like labeled break statement, continue statement also provides a labeled form. In case of deeply nested set of loops, we can use a label with the continue statement to specify which of the enclosing loops to continue. Its general syntax is this: the keyword continue, followed by the target label, followed by semicolon. Let's look at an example program in BlueJ to understand labeled continue statement. This program is like the labeled break statement program. Here we have three nested loops. We have labeled the outer one as first, middle one as second, and innermost one as third. If you are not familiar with labels, I recommend you watch the labeled break statement lecture first and then come back to this lecture. There I have discussed labels in detail. Okay, coming back to the program, inside the innermost loop, we have specified this condition that when k becomes equal to 5, program should print a new line and continue with the outermost loop. Let's execute the program. Now we will go over the program to understand how we got this output. Program execution starts with this outer loop. I is initialized to 1, loop condition is true. Program control enters inside the loop. Here we have our second loop. J is initialized to 1. Condition of the second loop is true, so program control enters inside it. For the third loop, K is initialized to 1. Condition is true. Program control moves to this line. This 1 is printed to the console. Program control comes to the if statement. Condition is false, so program control reaches the end of the loop. It goes back to the beginning of the loop to start the next iteration. Similarly, the loop continues its iterations till k becomes 5, printing this 2, 3, 4, 5 to the console. In the fifth iteration, when k is 5, this condition becomes true. Program control moves to this statement which prints a new line to the console. Then program control comes to the labeled continue statement. It transfers the program control to the beginning of the first loop. With the exit of second and third code blocks, variables j and k don't exist anymore. I is incremented to 2. As the condition of outer loop is true, its second iteration starts and proceeds in a similar way, printing the second line of the output. Program execution goes on for 3 more iterations of the outer loop till I is less than equal to 5, giving the rest of the output. Similar to the labeled break statement, the code block that is the target of labeled continue statement should enclose it, otherwise compiler will give an error. Let me write a fourth loop outside these nested loops so that it doesn't enclose this continue statement. So far, the program is compiling with no errors. Now I will specify kboard as the target of the continue statement. The compiler is complaining about the label kboard as this code block is not enclosing the continue statement. Let me revert this label back to first. Now the code is again compiling with no errors. I hope now you have a good understanding of continue and labeled continue statement. Time to wrap up this lecture. I will see you in the next lecture. Goodbye. Over the course of next few lessons, we will learn how to write programs that print a pattern. Pattern programs are a favorite of ICSE. Almost every year, one question based on patterns has come in Computer Applications Board exam. Most of the students find pattern programs complicated and struggle to solve them correctly. But don't worry, I will show you how to solve them. Once you have gone through these lessons, you will be able to solve pattern programs easily. Before I start pattern programming, I want to tell you a very important thing related to it. Pattern programming is a vast topic. In that, patterns can range from simple ones like these two patterns shown here to complicated ones like these. There is no upper limit to the complex patterns which you can create through code. Keeping this in mind, the Council has done an excellent job in defining the scope of the patterns which will be asked in your board examinations. This is the ICSE Computer Applications Academic Year 2019-2020 syllabus. In the nested loops section here, the syllabus clearly mentions that only rectangular and right-angled triangle-based patterns will be asked in the exam. Here are a few examples of rectangular patterns. And these are some right-angled triangle patterns. Such patterns are in course and can be asked in the exams. Any other type of patterns like pyramid patterns or other complex patterns shown here will not be asked in the exam. So you should only focus on rectangular and right-angled triangle-based patterns for your computer applications board examination. Don't spend your time on any other type of patterns as they will not be asked in the exam. I want to show you one more important thing. Let me switch back to the syllabus. Only nested for loops are in syllabus. Nested while and nested do while are not in syllabus, so I have not covered them in this course. Okay, so with that out of the way and scope of our pattern programming discussion defined, let's start by looking at a few simple rectangular patterns. This is the first pattern that we will learn. In a pattern, there are three basic things. First is the number of rows in the pattern. Second is the number of terms getting printed in each row of the pattern. You can also think of it as the number of columns in the pattern. And the third one is what is getting printed in the pattern. For this pattern, the number of rows is 3. Each row has 5 terms in it, and each term is a star or asterisk. Now let's switch to BlueJ and write a program for it. I have already added this kboard pattern1 class. I will write the code for generating this pattern inside the main method of this class. I told you a pattern consists of 3 things: number of rows, number of terms in each row, and what is getting printed. We will translate these 3 things into our Java program. The outer loop controls the number of rows in the pattern. As this pattern has 3 rows, our outer loop will run 3 times. For I equal to 1 till I is less than equal to 3, I will increment by 1 in each iteration. The inner loop controls the second part, that is the number of terms getting printed in each row of the pattern. In this pattern, each row contains 5 stars. So, our inner loop will run 5 times from j equal to 1 till j is less than equal to 5. J will also increment by 1 in each iteration. Okay, so far we have taken care of first 2 things. Next, let's focus on the third one, which is what is getting printed in the pattern. Each row of the pattern contains 5 stars separated by spaces. So inside the inner loop, I will write system.out.print Then I will open the quote, and inside it I will write star followed by space, and then I will close the quote and end the statement with a semicolon. Notice that I have written system.out.print, not system.out.println. The inner loop controls the number of terms getting printed in each row. If I write println instead of print here, then each star will get printed on its own line. We don't want that. We want the stars of a row to be printed next to each other. For this reason, we have used print and not println. Let me show you what will happen if I write println. That will make it clear. I am changing the print to println. I will execute the program now. As you can see in the output, each row has a single star in it. But our pattern contains 5 stars in each row. That's why this should be print and not println. This is amongst the most common mistakes students make in patterns. So make a note of it, don't forget it. I am repeating it once more. The inner loop controls the number of terms getting printed in each row. So use print and not println to print the terms in each row. I will execute the program again. Oh, this doesn't look like our pattern. All the stars are printed in one single line. Let's check our program to find out what we are missing. The rows should be separated with a new line, and we are not doing that. To fix this, we should print a new line after printing each row. The inner loop is printing each row. So, if I write system.out.println after the inner loop but inside outer loop like this, then the rows should be separated with a new line. Note that I have written system.out.println and there is nothing inside the parenthesis, as I only want to print a new line and nothing else. Now let's run the program and hopefully our pattern should get printed correctly. And indeed, our program correctly outputs our pattern. Let's recap quickly before moving on to the next pattern. There are 3 things in a pattern: the number of rows, number of terms in each row, and what is getting printed in the pattern. Outer loop controls the number of rows. Inner loop controls the number of terms getting printed in each row, and inside the inner loop, we print whatever is getting printed in the pattern. Inside the inner loop, we use system.out.print, and just outside the inner loop, we write system.out.println so that each row starts on a new line. Moving on. Next, we will print this pattern. Let's compare it to the previous pattern and see what the differences are. Both have the same number of rows, which is 3. In both patterns, stars are getting printed. The only difference is in the number of terms in each row. In this pattern, there are 3 stars in each row, whereas previous one has 5 stars. So, to get this pattern, I should only change the number of times inner loop is executing. Let's go back to the previous program and change the inner loop to get this pattern. So I will change this 5 to 3 like this. The outer loop and this print statement inside the inner loop will remain the same. Let's execute it. And we got our second pattern. Now let's move to rectangular patterns involving numbers. This is the next pattern that we will solve. I will add another class for this. I will name it keyboard pattern 2. Let's replace this code with the main method. Okay, now we are ready to write the program for this pattern. The pattern has 3 rows, so I will write an outer loop to run for 3 iterations like this. Each row has 5 terms, so the inner loop will execute for 5 times. I will write it like this. Now, what to print inside the inner loop to get this pattern? Notice that the term in each row is the row number and it is not changing within a row. First row has 5 ones, second row has 5 twos, third row has 5 threes. This means that whatever variable that we need to print inside the inner loop should not change its value in the inner loop, but should increment with each iteration of the outer loop. We have two variables currently in our program, I and j. We cannot use j as it is incrementing with each iteration of the inner loop. Let's look at I. It is not changing inside the inner loop, but it is incrementing with each iteration of the outer loop. And that's exactly what we need. Let's print I inside the inner loop like this. Now I will run the program. Oops, this doesn't look like our pattern. It is printing 5 ones, 5 twos and 5 threes, but the rows are not separated with a new line. I again forgot to add system.out.println after the inner loop. Let me correct it. Don't let this happen to you. Remember to add system.out.println after the inner loop. I will run the program again. This time it gives me the correct output. Didn't I tell you solving pattern programs is so easy? Just focus on the three things: the outer loop, the inner loop, and what to print inside the inner loop. And don't forget to add system.out.println after the inner loop. Let's move on to our next pattern. So this is our next pattern. It is a variation of the previous pattern we solved. The only difference between this pattern and the previous one is that previously the numbers in each row were increasing from 1 to 3. In this pattern, they are decreasing from 3 to 1. This means that if I can make the value of I go from 3 to 1 instead of 1 to 3, then I have solved this pattern. And I know doing this is very simple. In the outer loop, I will initialize I to 3 instead of 1. Let me go back to the previous program and show it to you. I will initialize I to 3. I should be greater than or equal to 1. And as I am going from higher value of I towards lower value of I, this should be I minus minus. Let's execute the program now. We got the correct output. Let's move to the next pattern. We will go over it a bit quickly. Let me add keyboard pattern 3 class for this. Let's replace this code with the main method. Now we are ready to code this pattern. This pattern has 5 rows. Each row has 5 terms in it, so our inner and outer loop should execute for 5 times. The numbers in the rows start at 9 and are decreasing by 2 with each row. Let's write the outer loop for this pattern. The outer loop control variable I will start at 9. It should be greater than or equal to 1. And as we are going from a higher value to a lower value, I should decrease by 2 with each iteration. Each row has 5 terms, so our inner loop control variable will start at 1. It will be less than or equal to 5 and will increment by 1. Inside the loop, I will use system.out.print to print the value of I to the console. Don't forget to add system.out.println outside the inner loop. And with this, our program is ready. Let's run it. It is printing the pattern correctly. I hope you have a good understanding of how to solve rectangular patterns now. Next, we will look at right angle triangle patterns. They are even more interesting. This lesson builds upon the pattern programming concepts we learned in the previous lesson. It will show you how to write programs for right angle triangle patterns. In case you haven't yet watched the previous lesson of solving pattern programs, I strongly recommend you watch it and then start with this lesson. Let's start by solving this pattern. See, these stars are forming a right angle triangle. That's why such patterns are called right angle triangle based patterns. Like rectangular patterns, here also we will start by looking at the three basic things of patterns, which are number of rows, number of terms in each row, and what is getting printed in the pattern. This pattern has 4 rows. So let's write the outer loop to run for 4 times. The number of terms in each row for right angle triangle patterns varies with the rows, whereas for rectangular patterns it was constant. In this pattern, the first row has 1 star, second row has 2 star, and so on. So, for the first iteration of outer for loop, the inner loop should run only once. For the second iteration of outer loop, inner loop should run twice. For the third iteration of outer loop, inner loop should run 3 times. And for the fourth and final iteration of outer loop, inner loop should run 4 times. How should we write the inner loop so that it executes in this manner? Notice that the number of iterations of inner loop per iteration of outer loop is equal to the row number. The outer loop control variable I gives the row number. Let me show it to you by printing I. See, the value of I is 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the same as the number of times our inner loop should execute per iteration of outer loop. So if I write my inner loop like this, first let me remove this println. J should start from 1. The condition of this inner loop should be j less than equal to I and then j++. This way, the inner loop will iterate row number times for each iteration of outer loop. Inside the inner loop, I will print star like this. I will add a system.out.println after this inner loop so that each row starts on a new line. Let's execute the program now. We get the correct output. Don't worry if you are still a bit unsure about how this program is printing this pattern. I will explain you the line-by-line execution of the program with the help of this table. The outer for loop starts by initializing I to 1. Next, the inner for loop initializes j to 1. After that, this print statement prints this star. J becomes 2, so condition of inner loop is false. Program control comes to this statement and prints a new line. Now whatever we will print after this will start on a new line. I becomes 2 and second iteration of outer for loop starts. Inner for loop starts from 1 again. This star gets printed by this print statement. Remember, as we already printed the new line character at the end of previous iteration of outer loop, so this time the output will start on the next line. J becomes 2 next, and this second star is printed. After that, J becomes 3. Condition of inner for loop becomes false. Program control comes to this println statement and prints the new line character so that next output is printed on a new line. At the end of second iteration of outer for loop, we have printed the first 2 rows of our pattern. Other iterations of outer for and inner for happen in a similar way. I have provided the details in this table. I hope now you have a very good idea about the program for this pattern. Let's move on to our next pattern. This is our next pattern. It is just an inverted version of the previous pattern. Let's quickly analyze this pattern. It has 4 rows like before, but this time the number of stars in each row starts from 4 and decreases with each row so that the last row has just 1 star. This tells us that outer loop should still run for 4 iterations, but it should go in the reverse direction. I will go back to the previous program and change the outer loop accordingly. Now the outer loop control variable I should start from 4. I should be greater than equal to 1, and as we are going from a higher value to a lower value, it should decrease like this. No changes are required in the inner loop or the 2 println statements. Let's run the program now and see if it gives us the correct output. We got the correct output. Here is the table outlining all the iterations of inner and outer loops to print this pattern. You can go through it to get an in-depth understanding of this program in the same way as I showed for the previous example. Let's move on to our next pattern. We will solve this pattern now. Let me quickly add a new class with main method for this pattern. The number in each row are the row numbers and they are increasing from 1 to 5. Let's write the outer loop for this. The outer loop will run from 1 to 5. The inner loop will run from 1 to I like this. As the numbers in each row are the row numbers, we will print I inside the for loop. Don't forget to add system.out.println after the inner loop. With that, our program is ready to print the pattern. Let's run it now. As you can see in this output, the program is correctly printing the pattern. Here is the execution table for this program for your reference. Next pattern is this. The number of rows and number of terms in each row of this pattern are the same as the previous pattern. The only difference is in what is getting printed in each row. I will go back to the code of the previous pattern. Here, these outer and inner for loops will remain the same for this pattern. We just need to figure out what we should print in place of I here to get this pattern. The first term of each row is 1. Last term is the row number and terms inside the row are incrementing by 1. This sounds same as how J is incrementing. It starts at 1, goes till the row number and increments by 1 in each iteration. So, if we replace I with j like this, we should get this pattern. Let's check by executing the program. Wow, we got our pattern so easily. Our next pattern is this. I will quickly add a new class with main method for this pattern. This is an inverted triangle, meaning number of terms in each row are decreasing as we come down. The first term of each row is the row number and last term is 5. If you see the first term of each row, it is increasing from 1 to 5. So, I will write the outer for loop like this. I will start at 1. It will be less than equal to 5. And it will increment by 1 in each iteration. After this, in inner loop, j will start from I. That's because the first term of each row is the row number. Condition will be j less than equal to 5 as last term of each row is 5 and then j++. Inside the inner loop, I will print j. And as always, add system.out.println after the inner loop. Let's run the program now. It gives the correct output. This is our next pattern. I will quickly add a new class for this. This pattern is also an inverted triangle with 5 rows. The first term of each row is 9 and last term of each row starts at 1 and goes till 9, increasing by 2 with each row. If I run my outer loop like this, loop control variable I will start at 1, I will be less than equal to 9 and I will increment by 2 in each iteration. Then I will give me this last term of each row. Let me show it to you by printing I inside the loop and executing the program. As you can see in the output, I is giving the last term of each row. I will remove this print statement. Coming to the inner loop, all rows are starting with 9, so I will initialize j with 9. We already saw that I is giving the last term of each row. So the condition of this for loop will be j greater than equal to I. As the loop is going from higher value to lower value, so we need to decrement j. By how much should we decrement j? The difference between successive numbers in each row is 2. So we will decrement j by 2. Inside this inner loop, I will print j. Lastly, I will add system.out.println here. And with this, the program is complete. Let's run it now. The program correctly outputs the pattern. Let's try this pattern next. I'll start by adding a new class for this pattern. Let's analyze this pattern now. Although the pattern looks complicated at first glance, it is quite simple. There are 5 rows, so I will run the outer loop from 1 to 5 like this. In each row, the number of terms is equal to the row number, so I will write the inner loop like this. Odd numbered rows contain hash sign and even numbered rows contain star. The outer loop control variable I gives the row number. So if I is even, the program should print star, otherwise it should print hash. Let's add a if check for this. Let's run it now. Oh, that's not the output we were expecting. I again forgot to print new line after the inner loop. Let me fix it and run the program again. Now it is printing the correct pattern. Let's move to the next pattern. Now we will learn how to generate Floyd's triangle. Floyd's triangle is made up by arranging consecutive natural numbers starting at 1 in a right-angled triangle pattern like this. Our program will ask the user how many rows of Floyd's triangle he or she wants to print, and then it will generate Floyd's triangle with that many rows. I will add a new class, keyboard Floyd triangle, for this program. Let me remove this code and add the main method. I need to ask the user for the number of rows, so let's do that using scanner class. First, I will import the scanner class. After that, I will create an object of scanner class. Then, I will show the user a message to enter the number of rows. I will store the number of rows entered by the user in variable n like this. As Floyd's triangle consists of consecutive natural numbers starting at 1, I will define another int variable named term and initialize it with 1. We will look at the use of this variable in a moment and then you will understand it clearly. For now, we will move to the outer loop. As you already know, outer loop controls the number of rows, so it will run from 1 till n. Variable n gives the number of rows the user asked for. Coming to the inner loop, the number of terms in each row is equal to the row number, so inner loop will run from 1 to I like this. Floyd's triangle is made up of consecutive natural numbers. So if I print the variable term that I defined earlier inside the inner for loop, and after printing increment its value by 1, then it should print the Floyd's triangle. I will separate the terms in each row with a tab instead of a space like this. The reason for this is, as Floyd's triangle can contain 1 or 2 or 3 or more than 3-digit numbers, with a space they will not line up properly. Using a tab as the separator will solve this problem. Let's add the system.out.println after the inner loop. Our program is ready, so let's check it now by executing it. I want to generate 4 rows of Floyd's triangle. Okay, our program correctly outputs Floyd's triangle of 4 rows. Coming back to the program, we can do one simplification in it. Here, we are incrementing the value of term by 1 after printing it. We can do the same thing with the help of post increment operator like this. I don't need this statement anymore. This will increment the value of term by 1 after printing it. Let's execute the program again. Again, I will print 4 rows of Floyd's triangle. It is generated correctly. Let me execute the program one more time to generate 6 rows of Floyd's triangle. So, our program is able to successfully generate Floyd's triangle of any number of rows based on the user's choice. As you saw, while solving these patterns, there is no set formula that you can apply to solve all the patterns. You have got the outer loop, the inner loop, and then you need to print something in the inner loop. By looking at the pattern, you must figure out how you should run the inner and outer loops and what you should print inside the inner loop to generate the required pattern. You need to develop a mindset and a way of thinking to correctly solve pattern programs. And the only way to do it is practice. Now that you know how to approach pattern questions, with just a little bit of practice, you can easily master them.